Live on Instagram.
And then I need to click go live on Instagram. Exactly. So we're gonna wait a little bit for Instagram to wake up.
The audience are already watching us have this conversation.
There we go.
It's very professional, ladies and gentlemen.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Three Monkeys. Today I have a special, unique guest, one of a kind. For some reason, I'm hearing myself double.
Oh,
How do I stop that? Hearing myself double.
but I can hear you fine.
Hmm.
Check if you have one of those tabs, or like maybe you have like the YouTube tab on, and then it's like playing back, something like that. If it's on, maybe you just mute the YouTube tab so it doesn't.
I think that's exactly what it was, but I'm hearing myself double. Oh wow, from so many places.
Somebody is asking bliss of jihad.
All right, we're starting from the beginning. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the show. Today's guest is Stephen Frank, right?
Yeah,
I said it
yeah,
right. Frank
yeah,
Stephen,
you
who is
got it.
also known as the Nigerian perspective and also Bliss of Jihad, a guy that is well known in YouTube for explaining the beauty of Islam in a very, very unique way, and mostly giving a really good and important insight about what is happening in Africa, what is happening in Nigeria, particularly, and what is happening between the Christians and the Muslims and everything in between. You're a Christian, you're living in Nigeria, and I think you're the best person for us to come and welcome on the show now and ask you the questions that we all want to know about what is happening there. So thank you for coming on my show.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I'm not sure about being the best person to have to discuss the topic. I think there's people who do a much better job, but thank you so much for having me. Yes, yes, yes. And the bliss of jihad name is a sarcastic name. Just know that it is me being sarcastic. Okay, there is no bliss in jihad, but we've been told that jihad is, people have it misunderstood. So I decided, you know what, maybe we'll go with the we'll go with that. Yeah, we have it misunderstood. The jihad is about internal struggle and all whatnot. And then I formed a YouTube channel called The Bliss of Jihad, just so I can help people see that internal struggle that they tell us Islam is about. So yeah.
Yeah, I see people in the crowd get confused a little bit from that name. So thanks for explaining.
Yeah.
Frank, let's jump right in. Steven, sorry, and I'm going to ask you directly the question here.
Okay.
Why are they killing Christians in Nigeria?
Because they have been commanded to do so.
Who is commanded to do so?
Those are people who are following the religion of peace.
And what religion is that? The religion of peace that now is killing Christians in Nigeria.
It's the beautiful Islam.
The beautiful Islam. All right. So Christians in Nigeria are being killed for simply for being Christian because Muslims, or at least not all, but the ones that do so believe that this is the right thing to do for them religiously.
Mm.
Who is killing these Christians in Nigeria?
They have many names. You have Boko Haram, you have Ansaru, you have ISWAP, which is Islamic State West African Province. You have the Fulani militias. Essentially, you have 22 both major and embryonic terrorist groups in Nigeria, Islamic terrorist groups in Nigeria that engage in these terror attacks.
My God, you guys have almost more terrorist groups in Syria. This is like the equivalent of a startup in radical jihadist world. Like the more innovative they become, the more terrorist groups they bring out, and each one is competing to be who's more radical than the other. So
The funny thing about what you just said is that that's kind of like the joke we have in this country. We say, just like how people have startups, that's how these Muslims have terror organizations. We say it a lot. We call it we call it their enterprise, their business, their trade at this point.
yeah, I almost got kicked out of university when I was studying Islamic studies, because the
Mm,
professor was Muslims, and I wanted to write an article comparing Islam
mm,
by the leader of Islam, the Prophet, and Jesus and Muhammad, and by his disciples, and then explaining why is it looks like as it is looking like today. And one side preached about love and turn your other cheek and love your enemy, and all of his disciples died in the name of love. They went and preached love, and they got fed to lions, they got crucified, they got killed, they got sent to gladiator games and exile in the name of
mm,
love. One side preached death and war and slavery and plundering and killing and
mm,
hatred. And all of his
mm.
disciples ended up practicing exactly that against each other. By the way, that's how the Sunnah and the Shia started. They started killing one another, raping one another's wives, and kidnapping, and later on went and kept doing it around the world. So my professor told me, if you publish this, you're out of here. And I was like, come on, man.
Because in Islam, the truth, the biggest Islamophobe on the planet, when it has to do with Islam, the biggest Islamophobe is the truth.
That, that is true. The biggest Islamophobe is the truth. Crazy. So the Christians are being killed by numerous terrorist organizations and groups and factions. Is the government protecting the Christians from these massacres in Nigeria?
No, no, they are not. They're not doing enough. They're not doing what they usually do when they want to protect people. When they are out to protect people, they're not doing as much.
They're not.
They're not. They're
That's
not.
fair. Very sad. Let's jump to statistics. I want to read a little bit some numbers here, and then we can,
Mhm.
dive right in. And I would love to hear your thought about it. And correct me if I got anything wrong. But a
Okay.
report from International Society for Civil Liberals and Rule of Law estimate that since 2009, at least 52,250 Christians have been murdered in Nigeria. According to the same report, the large portion of those, more than 30,250, were killed between 2015 to 2023. Some recent claims from politicians and certain advocacy groups assert that in 2025 alone, this year,
Mm,
over
mm,
7,000 Christians have already been killed. When we say
mm,
killed, we're not talking about people who died in car accidents or because of elderly or to the flu or COVID. We're talking about people who were massacred with kitchen knives, machetes, and AK-47s and filmed in
mm,
mass graves as the key people who killed them shouted Allahu Akbar as they did that. Is that
mhm.
correct? Are these numbers is what you hear?
Yeah, that is that the number. If you're quoting Inter Society, that is the number they provided, and there are other organizations that have carried out their own study and have come out with numbers that are higher than that. Some have come out with numbers that are like 100,000. Even if you read, there is I've forgotten the name of the newspaper article that reported on Inter Society's report. So it was like a report on the report from Inter Society, and even in Inter Society's report, they mentioned that many of the victims since 2009 from Islamic violence, uh, a huge majority of them are Christians. And then when they give the Christian figure, they gave over 100,000 figure. Within the same study that mentioned 52, they also mentioned over 100,000 victims being Christians, right? And you also have other estimations that are like higher, way higher than the one we just you just read. But the
Way
reason
higher
why,
than that.
yes, way higher. Some even go as far as 500,000, as high as 500 is the range of from 50,000 to 500,000. And Inter Society's number is the most conservative number you will find, and that is why I think if although you have people in the government, in the Nigerian government, that are denying the Inter Society figure, you have also Muslims in Nigeria who want to cover their jihadi activities that are also denying the report. And if I'm to advise them, I would tell them accept the report or at least keep quiet about it. Is that case of um, this is far from the truth, because the truth is worse. So you better just say, okay, we'll go with those numbers, because if you keep questioning the numbers and people decide to really do real work and gather every report they can find, listing all the casualties that have been that is public, and that's one thing you need to know. All these reports are based on reports that were already made, not the deaths that we are not reported. But if you they actually go in and then they carry all the reports together, you might end up with numbers that may be very, very alarming. So it's a case of, if I'm to advise the government and to advise the jihadi sympathizers, I would say just go with those numbers. It's a case of the truth can be worse. The actual truth, the real truth, the detailed information that we can gather from what is happening in this part of the world, the northern part of Nigeria. Gather all those information, they can be worse than what we already see or what we already have been reported.
Oh
According to Open Doors in 2000 and was it 2004 now 2000 not 2004 in 2024 2023, I think it's in 2023, Open Doors published that 80% of persecution of Christians in the world, 80% of it happens in northern Nigeria. So
oh wow,
yes.
that is insane. Here's my question: where is Black Lives Matter? In Sudan, in less than 10 days, more people were massacred than the entire war of Gaza in 2 years. Let that sink in. In Nigeria, in less than 1 year, we haven't finished 2025. Christmas is coming soon. Thanksgiving just happened. New Year's. More than 7,000 Christians were massacred in the most horrific way. And this is happening all over in Congo, in Somalia, in Kenya, just happening all over. And these are Black people. So where is Black Lives Matter? I'll ask even more. Where is Greta Thunberg? Where is all the activists? How come they're all of a sudden so silent? And I want to ask you, as an African, what is your thought about this?
When you mentioned Black Lives Matter, you say, where is Black Lives Matter when it has to do with what is happening in Nigeria? I'm like, where is Black Lives Matter when teenagers in Chicago are shooting each other? Like, let's not even go far. When teenagers in Chicago are shooting each other over gang violence, where is Black Lives Matter? Of course, you know that Black Lives Matter don't they have nothing to say about every other example of Black lives being taken, except when it is Black people being killed by white police officers. Okay, that is the only thing that fits their narrative. That's how you know these people are not really objective in how they view Black lives. And I would say that it was a bit out of character for them when they published that Twitter. Was it on Twitter or on Instagram? Where did this what is that stuff that Gazans flew into Israel?
The paraglider. The
Yeah, the
paraglider.
paragraph, when they
When they
published that,
support us
and then
Hamas.
they said, yeah, and they said free Palestine. I think it was out of character for them because usually they usually focus on just white police officer, black black usually criminals sometimes usually that's their MO, but they went a bit out of character when they published that. But for the most part, Black Lives Matter don't care about anything that does not fit a particular narrative. Now, for the entire Western world, especially when you look at those who spent the last 2 years protesting in the streets for a free Palestine, right? Those people, they just walk with a mentality of, they have all these groups, whether they are the Queers for Palestine, whether they are the Feminists for Palestine, whether they are the whatever group they consider themselves for Palestine, they have a framework with which they work with. They have something that they are trying to push beyond just Palestine, and Palestine is good enough for them to do that. Okay, many of them want to see the destruction of the West, and Palestine has given them that opportunity to do so. That is why you see them team up with Islamists in the West, because all these groups hate Western values, they hate Western civilization, they hate the glorious things that the West has contributed to society, and they want to destroy all of that. So for them to stand up for a Christian dying in Nigeria, or to stand up when Muslims are killing other Muslims, or other conflicts that don't help. Okay, the only time a conflict that is happening, whether in the West or outside the West, is important for these people is when it can be instrumental in them destroying the West. Okay, so the narrative of Muslims being killed by Christians would require these people, for them to speak on it and for them to say, okay, we are supporting the Christians, would require them, first of all, to recognize that Christianity is good, and at the very least recognize that there is something bad in Islam, or at least there is a dangerous element in Islam, and that's something that does not fit into the framework with which they operate. And of course, these people, their understanding of the world they view the world from the binary of oppressor, oppressed. sometimes we say, oh, why are they not calling this very act of oppression? Why are they not focusing on clear acts of oppression? Is because it does not, that act of oppression that we are calling the attention to does not fit into the oppressor oppressed narrative. So that's why they don't often focus on stuff like that, because something that is happening in Nigeria where the Muslims are the ones carrying out oppressive acts and people on the receiving side are Christians. It's not good. It's not good for for people who
Yeah,
want
that's
to
it's
destroy
it's
the
just
West.
it's bizarre watching it from the side and seeing that Christian countries are more obsessed with Christians killing Muslims or Jews killing Muslims than Muslims killing Christians, just for a
Yeah.
start. And I would say not more obsessed, they literally ignore Muslim
Mm,
killing Muslims, and they ignore Muslim killing Christians, and that is happening in way bigger numbers. But they're just obsessed when it comes to Christians killing Muslims or general white people killing Muslims. And it's just, it's like a complete bankruptcy. Like, look at Black Lives Matter. They went out of the way to put a paraglider in support of Hamas on October 7. Like,
yes.
watching the videos, it was the most live streamed massacre genocidal attempt in the history of mankind. That's what
Hmm.
was October 7th, the most. Up until what the Syrian regime did to the Druze, that was even more live streamed in some ways.
Mm,
So during that time, they come and they show their support to something that is not related to black people, not related to Americans. They went out of their way to support. Why are they not putting any banners about, Muslims stop killing Christians in Sudan, or Muslims stop killing Arabs, stop killing black people in Sudan just because
mm,
they're black? They're not doing any of that. Or in
mm.
Nigeria, they're like, literally nothing. But that just shows you how, what that you can't really trust these activists and these organizations, because they're not good. They're not
Yeah.
looking to do good. They're looking to politicize human suffering in order to promote their own
The
political
agenda.
agenda, which could
Yeah.
be communism, could be totalitarian regimes, could be anything that is anti-West. But I wanna dive right in a little bit, because so Christians are being killed in Nigeria simply because they're Christians by Muslims who don't like them. Is it only the terrorist organizations that are killing them, or is it also the government? Is it happening randomly in the street? Like, can you get killed walking in a market or on the way to school because you're a Christian? Or is it just because a bunch of jihadists raided your village now with like pickup trucks and then they start killing everyone? Like,
Yeah. To answer that question, I want to point out something that people often say with regards to what is happening in Nigeria. You hear it from CNN, you hear it from BBC. They say the problem in Nigeria is complex, or is complicated. It's not as simple as a Christian genocide. First of all, I will agree with them that yes, the issue in Nigeria is complicated, and can still and all of those complexities can be defined as can be described as genocide. And that is because the first of all, we need to understand that what Nigeria has been accused of is two things. One, the genocide of Christians and the persecution of Christians. Okay, these are the two things that we are being criticized of, either going on or being allowed to go on: genocide and persecution. On the genocide front, you have many attacks, like so many attacks that have taken place in this country that fits the category of what you call a jihad. What do we call, I mean, not a jihad, a genocide. What do you call a genocide? Genocide is the willful targeting of a group of people because of their ethnic, national, racial, or religious identity, with the goal of destroying that group, either in part or in whole. Okay. And when you look at some of these acts, and one thing we need to understand about genocide is that it doesn't need to be state actors or state sponsored. It's not always what makes something genocide, because people often think, oh, it has to be state sponsored. No, it can be carried out by private individuals within the state. It can be carried out by state entities within the state that are not representative of the entire state. Okay, and what is happening in Nigeria fits that description. Just this year, we had the attack during Easter, where over 300 people were killed in Yelwata in Benue State. Okay, these jihadists came to to Benue State and attacked the community, destroyed people's property, killed people, killed over 300 people. Right now in Benue State, which is a Christian majority state in Nigeria, over 50 communities, okay, we are speaking about numbers, over 50 communities don't have people living in them. Like people are not living not people are living in them, but the people who are originally the original residents of those places cannot live in their homes, in their ancestral land, in the land that was
Really?
passed down to them from their father, that their
Wow.
grandfather, their great. They cannot live there now. They have been displaced. Over 50 communities, 52 communities in one state. They have been driven out by this so-called bandits or whatever name the Nigerian government or the Nigerian news media like to call them. Driven out, and in their place, you have Fulanis living there. These Fulani militias have taken over the towns, taken over these communities. And here's the interesting part. They have renamed those communities. This is happening in Nigeria. And the government, the military apparatus, all these military agencies that we have in this country have done nothing. If the government claim that they are doing something about the situation, then we should ask ourselves in this country, why do we have internally displaced persons camp in this country, IDP camps? We've not had we've never suffered from any natural disaster in this country, whether it is earthquake, whether it's tsunami or whatever. We've never suffered from any of those. Yet you have people living in other states that are not theirs, unable to return to their homeland, displaced across the nation, living in abject poverty, in unimaginable conditions in this country, because they have been displaced by bandits. So if the government is serious, then let the IDP camps in Nigeria be emptied. Because you need to understand this, that these IDP camps that we are talking about, this is a situation where these communities have been taken over by terrorists in this country. The Nigerian government know where these terrorists are. They know where they are located. They know the communities that they've taken over, and they are doing little to nothing to reclaim those communities. And they have been doing so for a very, very long time. So if the government wants to keep doing something, why do we still have IDP camps in this country?
Yeah, I don't buy that. I don't buy governments not being able to handle terrorism to that degree. I was an officer in the IDF. I came from the world of counterterrorism. I was in Gaza many times and other places around Israel. And you can fight terrorism, especially
Yes.
if they're not holding their own country. Like Gaza literally took over Gaza, Hamas, and kidnapped it, and then they had their own autonomy and they did what they did. Look now, they poked with Israel. Israel came and literally flattened them. So in Nigeria, if you have a terrorist organization, come on, man, 1, 3, 4, 5 years. How long would it take you to clean them up? They don't have tanks. They don't have drones. They shouldn't. They don't have espionage agencies. The budgets you can find, they're not working people. Like a country works, produce, revenue, tax, and etc. They're leeches. They're stealing money from somewhere. They're getting their supply. So there's so many ways to cut them off and fight them, or at least weaken them. But it seems like in Nigeria and in Sudan, others, terrorist groups are flourishing. They're getting bigger and richer and more even cool. Like more people want to join them, young people, rather than the other way around. And let me ask you about that. Like, where are they recruiting all these people? Boko Haram and all these groups there. How do they keep recruiting people?
Yeah. Before I answer that question, there's something you said that I find very interesting. I'll get to the question. You said something about you said this, that any nation can fight terrorism if they determined to do so, right? And that is true, because in this country we fought a civil war. It was one of the deadliest moments in our country's history. We fought a civil war where one part of the nation wanted to succeed from the rest of the nation. The eastern part wanted to succeed, and that war was, the rebel side, the side that the Nigerian government called the side of the rebels, had ammunitions. They had they declared a state, essentially. They said we are the independent state of this, and the Nigerian government went to fight them. And they had former army generals that were part of the rebels. They had like a standing military. And in 2 years, they were defeated. In 2 years, they were defeated. Now, Boko Haram does not have that level of sophisticatedness. And this is 15 years and counting. And they have done little to nothing about it.
Yeah, man. I think a real army, like,
And one
so.
of the reasons is because, and one of the reason I suspect, and I have reasons to believe this, I think it has risen beyond the level of suspicion, is to say that the Nigerian government is not just complicit, but is facilitating it. It is facilitating this terrorist attack because there are people in the government that share the same ideology with this terrorist. And dare I say, are trying to help this terrorist. Let me give you an example. The Kebbi State attack, the kidnapping that took place in Kebbi State, where 24 girls were taken from their boarding school and kidnapped.
Wow.
Now, that boarding school had the press. There was in that community as a whole, there was heavy military presence prior to the attack. The boarding school was being guarded by Nigerian soldiers. Few hours before the attack, the soldiers received an order to leave. Where did that order come from? Who gave that order? And this is not me making it up. The governor of the state himself said that that is what happened. So I'm not fabricating it. This is not a suspicion. In fact, the governor of Kebbi State is the one asking the question. Who gave the order? Who told the army to leave? How this is too much of a coincidence. I don't know if you understand. Like they left and this is not the first time this is happening. Many of these communities that have been attacked in recent times will tell you that this is the same thing that keep happening. They have like bandits terrorizing the area. The Nigerian government sends or let's say these terrorists are attacking neighboring communities. Then the Nigerian government send the military to that community or to the next community that have not been attacked. And the Nigerian army establish a military presence in the community that have not been attacked, trying to protect them. And then the next thing we hear is they have been given an order to leave. And then after they've been given an order to leave, the next thing we hear is that they have been attacked. There is another one that happened recently. I think it happened last month. There was this preacher from Benue State who was sounding the alarm that terrorists are about to attack his community. That they're about to attack his community. They're about to attack his community. The Nigerian army released a statement saying that this preacher should be ignored, that he's raising false alarm, that there is no impending attack. It wasn't up to 24 hours, there was an attack in that community.
Wow.
Yes. So when you see instances like this, you ask yourself, there is somebody in the military, there's somebody in the government, or there are people in the government who are supporting this. Now, sorry, I'm telling too many stories, but I just want to give you another.
That's just to recap. So you're saying there's people in the government that might be supporting the kidnapping of Christian girls and
But just
churches
the overall insecurity. Yes. Another good example is I think it was in I've forgotten what year this happened, but this was under a different administration in Nigeria, an administration that really wanted to deal with the problem of Boko Haram when it started. They really wanted to nip this thing in the bud and get it done with. Now, when they were trying to do this, they were very aggressive. Like military-wise, they were very, very aggressive. Okay? And they wanted to get rid of the problem. And leaders, political leaders in this country, from the northern part of the country, we are issuing statements saying that military aggressiveness will not work. That killing Boko Haram is killing our brothers and sisters in the north. That's what they said. That is their statement. In fact, one of them that ended up becoming the next president said to attack Boko Haram is to attack northern Nigeria. Those were his statement. Yes. We have another one that rose to become a minister in the past administration. His name is Issa Pantemi. Issa Pantemi used to be he was a lecturer, I think a lecturer in ABU Zaria, I'm not sure, but he was a lecturer in Nigeria and was also an imam, a famous imam. When he was an imam, there are recordings of his teachings where he was advocating for terror attacks in Nigeria, where he said that he's in support of Al-Qaeda. Yes, where he said Boko Haram are our brothers and sisters.
Wow.
And this person rose to become a minister in Nigeria. We have another one in this country.
It
He
doesn't
goes
stop. It doesn't stop.
he goes by the name of Sheikh Gumi. Sheikh Gumi is a notorious sheikh in this country. This is a sheikh that has been banned from entering Saudi Arabia because of how extreme he is. This is a
Wow.
sheikh that has gone to Iran. His body with the Iranian government. Okay, he's in Nigeria. He said that the Nigerian government should negotiate with these terrorists and that they should stop using kinetic force. That they should embrace dialogue. That if you use military action, the bandits are going to get angry and they are going to attack even more. That instead, a country that does not have monopoly on the use of force should engage in dialogue and negotiation. That is what Sheikh Gumi has been advocating for, telling us that these people, maybe they don't want Western education, but how about we give them other forms of education and that the state should sponsor it.
To sponsor a terrorist group, that's his solution. They kill Christians, they kidnap little
And
girls.
he's their spokesperson. He's their spoke. There have been pictures and videos of him going and having sit downs with these terrorists. This is not unknown.
Sounds like Tucker Carlson, man. He became the spokesperson for dictator regimes and mass murderers. Oh my
Exactly. So when you look at all of this happening, and then the government tell you, yeah, we are on the matter. Really, really.
That is crazy, man. Let me read some statistics because I've seen some people here. By the way, Yara, my sister from another mother, one of the most beautiful Druze souls that I've got to interview. I did a podcast with her. Go and check it out as well. I'm glad to see you here. I see Leah and many other. Nora, thank you so much for the great job that you're doing and everyone that is here. Let me read for you some statistics, guys, to help explain, and then you can jump right in and fill the gaps. So the regional breakdown in Nigeria, at least the least reliable estimates that we can find is Christians 46 to 49%. You have Pentecostal, Charismatic, Catholic, Anglican, Evangelical, and African independent churches. Muslims are 48 to 52%, Sunni Islam majority, Sufi Brotherhood, and smaller Shia minorities like 2 to 4%. Traditional indigenous religions is 2 to 5%. In a simple way to explain how it looks like, the north belong to the Muslim, the south belong to the Christians, and the belt in the middle have a mixed, which I'm just guessing that's probably where most attention is happening, but maybe I'm wrong. So it looks like Nigeria is pretty accurately split in the middle between Christians and Muslims. However, it's already showing extreme concerning signs of promoting Sharia law all around Nigeria and covering or supporting for hideous crimes of Islam, with 50% Muslims in that country. Now, the question is, how is the government divided? Is the government also split half, or explain to us,
Uh,
please?
okay. First of all, in Nigeria, there's something that's called state character. But before I get into the whole state character, this is kind of like uh it's like a Nigerian form of identity politics. But let me not get into that first. Let me start by explaining that the census in Nigeria is something that I do not trust and I cannot trust. When we hear Nigeria is evenly split between Christians and Muslims, I don't know how true that is. We live in a country that is deeply corrupt. And when was the last time we even had a census? Everyone is speculating, and I don't like the speculations. Maybe because I have the bias of I believe that there are more Christians in this country than there are Muslims, and I know that the Muslim leaders in this country have a penchant for lying. Of course, the Christian leaders still lie, but the Muslim leaders take lying to another level. They lie with extra steps, right?
Well, it's kind of in the religion. It's called taqiyya, but let's ignore that for a second.
Yeah. So let's keep that. And then in Nigeria, with the Nigerian government and with the idea of state character, is that the positions in the government should be evenly distributed, should represent the tribe and religion and ethnicity of the people. So the Nigerian government, as for tries to maintain that policy of hiring and having people in the government, having people in ministerial positions that reflect the population of the country. So it is often evenly split amongst people of different tribe and of different religion. One of the problems that we are having in this country was when the current president, when he was running, decided to run with a Muslim vice president. Usually, when a Christian is running, his vice president is a Muslim. When a Muslim is running, his vice president is a Christian. But the current president, when he was running, ran with a Muslim vice president. And it might interest you to know. Speaking of a compromised government, when Jonathan was fighting terrorism, there was a man who is known as I keep forgetting his name. Kabiru Sokoto. Yes, that's what his name is. He's known as Kabiru Sokoto. Kabiru Sokoto carried out a terror attack at a Catholic church in Nigeria, killed more than 30 persons. We are killed in that terror attack. When Kabiru Sokoto was being sought after by the authorities, he was found. Guess where he was found?
In a church?
He was found in the governor's lodge of the governor of Borno State.
Wow.
Yes. And the then governor of Borno State is the current vice president of Nigeria.
Really? That's a terrorist.
Well,
Wow.
the governor has a lot of explanation for how Kabiru Sokoto ended up there. He said, the governor's lodge is usually a busy place, and for all we know, maybe Kabiru Sokoto was there to carry out an attack on his family members who stay in the lodge. That's kind of like the excuse that we've gotten from the. This is a known fact. Like this is a known fact.
Government, man. That's like finding a leader of a terrorist organization just kind of lodging in your government building, and you're like, oh, I don't know how he got here.
I don't know.
That's worse than someone walking to the house.
Yeah, maybe he was there to carry out his next terror attack. That was kind of like the explanation.
Yeah, maybe he's an Uber driver. Uber Eats. I don't know, guys. I just ordered a burger and he showed here. He was hiding in the closet.
Yeah, so when you look at that kind of thing, you tell yourself, is this a government that is serious? So yeah, that is it. And he was also like Shetima, that's the name of the current vice president, was also one of those people back then who was against using military force to fight Boko Haram. And Kabiru Sokoto was a Boko Haram, like he carried the attack in the name of Boko Haram, and Boko Haram took responsibility for that attack. So he was a known Boko Haram terrorist. So yeah, and he was found there. That's kind of the situation you find in Nigeria with regards to the government and how they operate and what they are made up of, as in what constitutes the government and how they operate. Somebody asked in the comment, I wanted to remember that question, said how many Christians have been killed? It's estimated between, I think the person probably joined the live stream just as we were talking. So it's estimated between 50,000 to 500,000. That's the number we are working with based on who you are reading. It's estimated between 50,000 and 500,000. But we know that many.
That's quite a big stretch. But I understand, because as someone who's been to Africa and been to many of the rural places there, it's not that easy to even know how many people live there. They don't, go and register and stuff like that, as we're used to maybe in Western countries. There's a lot of places there that don't have electricity, guys, and don't have, infrastructures. And also there's a lot of killing that is just happening there. A lot of killing. Like you mentioned that there's already few villages and towns that don't have their inhabitants in them because they all got, slaughtered, murdered, and had to evacuate. Well, that reminds me of Syria as well. There's about 36 Druze and Christian villages there that still can't have their inhabitants go back to them because the government and the terrorist organizations are holding it. And they're just estimating how many dead people there is because no one was even allowed to go there and give proper burial. By now, most of the people that were there were either joined in mass graves or just left for the animals of the field to come and eat them. So they don't really know how many people die. It's very hard to get accurate numbers in Islam and in Muslim-run countries. And I can tell you what, usually the numbers, there's a very simple math to it. If it's how many they killed, usually the number goes higher. If it's how many of their innocent civilian died, usually the numbers are actually lower than what they say. That's as solid as gravity, guys. Check it out. If you go and jump out of a window, you're going to break your leg. That's how gravity works. If you want to check radical Islam with numbers, this is how it is.
It's always how it is. It's always, in fact, there are many people who have come out to say that Boko Haram have attacked more Muslims than Christians. They burned down more mosques than churches, which are all of these are just verifiably false. You have Christian communities in northern Nigeria that Boko Haram occupy currently. They have areas in this country that they control. There are areas in Nigeria that are controlled by bandits. There are markets in Nigeria that for people to operate, for people to go and sell in those, buy and sell in those markets, they have to pay certain amounts to terrorists, known terrorists. Okay, there are people who, for to be able to go to their farmland, they have to pay a certain fee to the terrorists. If not, they will not be. If you go to your farmland, you get kidnapped or you get killed. This is happening in this country. Zamfara,
Crazy.
for example. Yeah, Zamfara is one state that has been ridden with, like, infested by banditry. Like, bandits operate in Zamfara state freely. They control the same thing with Niger State, where the Catholic students were kidnapped. There are areas in Niger. Niger State is one of the biggest states in Nigeria, and there are areas in Niger State that are just controlled by these bandits. They are controlled by, and you have an active government in that place. You have an active local government chairman who receives allocation every year for that particular area, and is supposed to be there to govern that place, and he's doing next to nothing. Meanwhile, in fact, some of these local government chairmans don't even, like, this is like the mayor of your town, and some of these mayors or local government chairman, like we call them over here, they don't even live there, but they are collecting their salary, they're collecting allocation while the bandits are running the show. It's
Wow,
happening in this
amazing.
country.
Frank, let me ask you an honest question.
Okay.
And well, we know about all these Muslim terrorist organizations running freely in Nigeria and all the way in Africa. Is there any Christian terrorist organizations in Nigeria?
No, there is none. You see, this is the thing. Like, there is none. There are none. There are Christian organizations in the south, in the southern part of the country, or at least they were proscribed terrorist organization by the government, even though arguments can be made for whether they are indeed terrorist organizations or not. The prominent one that comes to mind is the IPOB, that's the Independent People of Biafra, and MEND, Emancipation Movement for the Emancipation of the Niger Delta. These are like, and then you have the Masob. I've forgotten what Masob stands for. These are like terror organizations that are proscribed terror organization in the southern part of the country. And they've actually sometimes carried out activities like terrorists. So I can understand the proscription, them being proscribed terrorist organization by the Nigerian government. Yet we have terror groups from the north that behave like terrorists. They act like terrorists. Even publications have called them terrorists, but they are not proscribed terrorist organization by the government. Like Fulani militias, they are not proscribed terrorist organizations. They are seen as just thieves, bandits. They're not even seen as terrorists.
Bandits that are, repeatedly killing and kidnapping Christians.
Yes. Meanwhile,
And,
men is being
and they
proscribed.
just happen to be Muslims, and they just happen to be religious, and they just happen
And
to
they
shout
just happen to be
Allah
shouting at,
Akbar.
yeah, it's just sheer
It's
coincidence.
it's all coincidence, guys. Nothing to
Yeah.
look here. Smile and wave, boys, like the penguins in Madagascar. Nothing to look here. It's just, but they all shouted Allah Akbar. Yeah. It was a slip of tongue. No, but all
Yeah,
of they actually said that they want to do it because it's their religion. No, that's not what they mean. That is exactly how the West is defending Islam.
yes.
But
Yes. And I just want to also give us another understanding of what is happening in northern Nigeria, because when it comes to how Christians are being treated in the northern part, now in the south, of course, like I live in the southern part of the country, so Christians, we have rights, we move freely, okay, except when we have bandits running amok, But for the most part, you have relative security in the southern part of the country. But in the north, where you have, that is predominantly Muslims, Muslims are much in the population in the north. Beyond just banditry and terrorist activity, you also have persecution of Christians, like systemic persecution of Christians. There are instances where Christians have their church blown up and they could not build it back because the governor will not give them permit to build it back. There are instances where for Christians to attend public schools, they have to wear a hijab.
Christians.
Yes. If you watch the video of the Chibok girls being kidnapped, go and look at the video or the picture of the Chibok girls. They are all wearing hijab. All the girls are wearing hijab, but they are Christians. All of them are Christians. Why? They are attending a government school. You have instances where Christians apply for a job, and the job, they have a government job, they have to write an exam to qualify for the job. The Christian gets the best score in the job, and he's not given the job, he's given to a Muslim because this person is a Christian, this person is a Muslim. You have many of this kind of systemic discrimination that Christians suffer in the north. You have in another part of the country, like Kano State, you have the Hishba police. During Ramadan, the Hishba police will say even Christians should not eat in public. You have the Hizbah police going to people's restaurants and shutting it down and seizing their goods because they are selling alcohol. This is happening in a country that claims to be a liberal society, that we are running a liberal government. This is not a religious government. And this is going on in areas where you have Christians because because the Muslims are in charge and because they enforce Sharia law. Now, these are just the small parts. We are not even talking about, we've not even talked about when communities, Muslim communities in the north, will attack Christian communities.
That is insane, man. Let me ask you a question. Is there any Christian organizations that you know in Nigeria or in Africa that are going and kidnapping Muslim girls?
No, it doesn't
No,
happen. It
it
doesn't
doesn't.
happen. There's never been any report of such.
Why?
Of such.
Why do you think our Muslims in Africa go and kidnap girls, little girls? Like, what's the purpose? What are they gonna do with these girls?
Like, it depends on who kidnaps them. Now, if it is Boko Haram, of course, you know that they're going to rape many of these girls, if not all of them. They're going to turn some of them to sex slaves, where they get to give, become they are being subjected to sexual servitude. Some of them get trafficked, not just traffic in the sense of moved from one part of the state to the other, but sold to the Libya slave markets that we know of. And that sales is going to help Boko Haram acquire more weapons. So this is what we know happened to these girls, and that is why many of these girls are being attacked. And it's a form of genocide. You need to understand that this is a form of genocide where you attack the female population because this is a form of genocide, and you are trying to transfer, especially when you subject them to sexual slavery, you're trying to transfer the offspring of that generation from one group to another. You are essentially turning essentially turning the community to a Muslim community when you capture their women and you force them to have your children and pump out babies for you. That is an act of genocide. And
After you killed their families and murdered their
after you killed their
parents.
families, you murder the men in the family. You are essentially doing what Muhammad was notorious for when he was alive. That is what these people are doing. These are acts of jihad, by the way. That is the real jihad, not the internal struggle they keep telling us about. So that's
Wow.
what is happening there.
You know that this was a very known tactic used by the Ottomans when they were fighting the Christians in Europe. They will raid Christian towns, kill all the men, kidnap, rape, the women, and then kidnap little children. They basically what they would do, they'll take your pants down, and if you have puberty hair, they'll kill you, and if you don't, they'll take you. And then once they took them, they made them slaves, and they started, beating them up and humiliating them, indoctrinating them, and slowly, they will turn them into berserker, mad warriors that have no humanity. Like literally, they just kill one another. They strip them of dignity and humanity, and they just make them savages. And then they will send them back to
To the
Christian.
communities that they took them from.
So imagine now you're living in a community and your kid was kidnapped from you, and you survived, and you're just waiting, and then one day that kid comes back and murder you. And murder
Because of
everyone
what they
around
have
you.
been.
That is your child that they kidnapped. And the women that they kidnapped, the young ones, they made them, like you said, sex slaves and household slaves and etc. And then they kind of, that's where the the term Sabaya came, because they said, well, in Islam, if a man takes a woman, she becomes Muslim. No one is asking her, and she can't leave the religion. But what if I want to keep molesting her and sleeping with her and I don't know what and passing her between my friends? It's not that dignified to do to a Muslim woman. So they kind of created a subtitle for what they call as women who are loot of war, they're not really Muslims. It's okay to keep doing what you want to do to them, and then their children can be later on taken and added to that force of slavery
Mm,
and war. So that's
mm,
something that has been happening on steroids, in the Ottoman empires and other, Muslim caliphs before. And I feel like in Africa and in Syria and other places, once Islam is left unchecked and nothing is there to balance it, like you see in Dubai or Saudi Arabia, where they try to balance it a little bit to fit more with Western civilization, it it reached that point. It always reached that point. It always come to that point, and you know once they become semi-majority even in society, you start seeing these things happening. And that's, I think, how long can people like me and you warn Americans and warn Europeans and tell them, guys, we know what we're talking about, we've been there, we've seen it with
mhm.
our own eyes, we lived through it. Please, please pay attention. You're playing with fire. It always starts innocent. They always start like they're the victim, the poor people, and then they take over your house of, representatives, the politics, the media, and then that's it. No turning back. No
Mm.
turning back.
Yeah, what you were saying, you mentioned that part about when they get the men, they strip them, and then if they see one strand of pubic hair, they kill them. It just reminds me of something that happened in Nigeria. This happened in 1967. It's known in Nigerian history as the Asaba massacre. You can Google it. There's a Wikipedia article on it. There are books that have been a book rather that has been written by about it by eyewitnesses. And these eyewitnesses were not Nigerians. These were foreigners who were in the country when it happened and they witnessed it happen and they wrote about it. It's called the Asaba massacre. Now, this happened just after the Nigerian Civil War. Okay,
Mhm.
or during the Nigerian Civil War. The Nigerian Civil War had just started, and the Nigerian Civil War was fought between the Nigerian army and the Biafran army. The Biafran army declared a state of Biafra out of Nigeria, and the Nigerian army was fighting them to ensure that they remain in Nigeria. It was kind of like it was a Nigerian version of the American Civil War. So the Biafran army, the rebel army, like the Nigerians called them, had just gone into Asaba. Asaba was not part of Biafran territory, but they had gone into Asaba and gone as far as Ore. And then the Nigerian army were pushing them back. And they pushed them back to Biafran territory. Now, one thing you need to know about the Biafrans is that Biafrans are mostly Igbo speakers and they are Igbo people. But a part of the Nigerian territory where they invaded, so to speak, where they invaded and we are pushed back from, we are the Anioma people of Asaba. Now, the Anioma people of Asaba are Igbo speakers. Okay, they were Igbo speakers, even though they were not part of Biafra, but they spoke Igbo. Now, the Nigerian army was led by a man known as Colonel. He was Colonel then, but he later became general. In fact, later became head of state. He was the leader of the Nigerian troop that was fighting the Biafran forces and got them to retreat, was known as Colonel Moritala Mohammed. That is his name. He was leading the troop, Colonel Moritala Mohammed. And I think he's, I don't know how they call them in the army. The person assisting him was called Ibrahim Taiwo. I've forgotten whether he's captain or whatever he was called, Ibrahim Taiwo. So when they got into the Anyoma town, when they got into Asaba as a whole, they were terrorizing the town. Now, there were no Biafran soldiers, but they were terrorizing the town because, according to them, they believed that so many people in the town were collaborators with the Biafran army, and that's why Biafra was able to encroach into that town. Not the fact that the Biafran army kind of did it because they had an army and they could, but that no, they had collaborators within the town. So, in fact, people in that community had reports of people being killed because the army considered them to be collaborators. They were going killing people. They were really wreaking havoc on the town. So this was going on for like 2-3 days since the army had come, and then the elders of the community decided, look, we need to get these army people off our back so that they can just focus on the Biafrans they came to fight in the first place. So we are going to organize a rally. And in that rally, we are going to get people to come out. They're going to wear white to show, kind of peace and all whatnot. They're going to have branches. We are going to dance. And they did that. They organized a welcome party for the soldiers. They were dancing. They wore white. They were dancing. They even were chanting "One Nigeria" to show that, look, we are not part of the Biafran troop people. We don't support whatever it is. We are with you. We want to be part of the nation. We are Nigerians. We are all one. This is one country. No Biafra here. And
Mhm.
when they did the rally, the soldiers that they came to greet separated the men from the women. In fact, separated the males from the female, because any person who had a pubic hair that is a man was separated from the women, and they marched them to a square in the town. They marched them to a square and opened fire on them. They spent the whole day massacring, as in just killing and slaughtering the men. They started by doing it one after the other. They would bring 2 and 3 and shoot them. When that did not look fast enough, they started using machine guns, and they were doing it for the whole day.
This is in Nigeria.
In Nigeria, this happened during the Civil War. Later, the head of state of Nigeria later apologized for that attack. But there are many northern generals who say they will never apologize for that. One of them is Haruna, his late General Haruna. Said, why would I apologize for that? We are fighting for our nation.
Wait, they grabbed young men and they took their pants down?
Yes, they ensured that they were young. And every person who looked old enough for them was slaughtered. Whether you are a grandfather, whether you are a young teenager, it did not matter.
So you can be in the same family. You can be like 3 brothers and a father or a grandfather, and then take pants down, and then suddenly one of them doesn't have. He take him aside, and then he watches all the rest slaughtered.
Yes. In fact, women, according to reports, they said women, we right there in the rally ground, we are trying to disguise their sons to look like girls, so that they will not be taken from them.
What a sad reality, man. What a crazy
This happened in this country. And remember the name of the person leading the troops. His name is General Muritala Mohammed. His second in command, Ibrahim Taiwo. And in fact, it was said that it was Ibrahim Taiwo that gave the order for those men, for what happened to happen.
Coincidence?
And this is, by the way, I'm just giving you, this is not Boko Haram. This is not ISWAP. In fact, this is state-sponsored jihad activity. Because Anyoma community, Igbos are predominantly Christians. Like, it's hard. In fact, back then, it was almost an impossibility to find an Igbo person that was a Muslim. And this is southern Nigeria, where you have the majority of the Christian population. What do you describe that as? Was it not genocide? This is just 1967 genocide, so that's like way in the past. So, Nigeria have done way worse moving forward.
What is it today? What is it today that it's only Islam kidnapping little girls, only Islam executing little boys? Only, like, literally, the Jews are not kidnapping girls, the Christians are not kidnapping girls, atheists, the LGBT community is not kidnapping girls. Like, literally, it's only Islam, guys. And again, not all Muslims. I have great Muslim friends, but it's only Muslims that are doing that. Not all Muslims are terrorists, but all terrorists are Muslims. That shows you something, and people just keep ignoring that.
Right? Like now in this part of the country, even the statement "not all Muslims" is a privileged statement. I'm serious. It's a privilege. There are parts of the world where you live in where you don't have the luxury of saying not all Muslims, especially in northern Nigeria. When you live in northern Nigeria, you don't have the luxury of saying not all Muslims. People don't understand that if you live in a place where you can say not all Muslims, you are privileged. Because there are places in this world where you live in, you can't make that statement.
True.
I have family members that live in the northern part of the country. One of them told me that his Muslim friends cannot know where he lives. They don't come visiting him at home.
Wow.
And there is not because these Muslim friends don't want to visit him. It's because he doesn't want them to visit him. So that whenever there is a crisis in Nigeria, it will not be because there are many religious crises that are taking place in this country that has led to the mindless slaughter of Christians. And people who escape it.
Can you give us an example?
I'll give us like maybe 2 or 3 examples. And the people who escape these slaughters will tell you that the person who led the mob to his house Was the man he was being kind to? Was the food vendor that was staying opposite his house? Was the person who used to come to clean his house? Was the gate man in his house? Was the guy who they were so nice to? They thought they were family members. There was one I was watching. I was watching the person narrate the story on Twitter. I saw one of those clips, and the person was saying that when they wanted to kill her husband, that the husband called the man by the name and said, "Is it you that is killing me? Like, is it you? Like, of all people, is it you that is doing this to me?" And before the man was slaughtered, this person called the wife. That means he knew them very well, that he could call the wife and tell the wife that they were about to kill her husband. Not tell him, so I tell the wife, so that the wife would do something about it. Kind of gloating, kind of, rubbing it in her face. And saying
Yeah.
that, told her that the only way forward for her is for her to come out and marry one of them.
My God. Yeah, wow. This is what we've seen in Syria,
So
within Jerusalem, in
yes,
Israel,
exactly.
within
When you live in those kind of places, you cannot be saying not all Muslims, because who do you really want to take that risk of trusting that this is not? Now, granted, even in northern Nigeria, there have been instances of where Christians were saved by Muslims. But it's like living in Nazi Germany. Which German do you trust?
It's a problem, man. It's a problem. Like, you have the tendency in you all the time to say, I don't want to be like them. I don't want to generalize. I don't want to be radical. I don't want to offend. I have good Muslim friends, and if they would watch my video, I don't want them to think that I hate them. And then you start saying stuff like that. Not all Muslims, and not all, and of course not all. But just like you said, it comes a problem. Like, to which extent can you trust, and who can you trust? And if today Sharia law will become a dominance aspect in your society, will they stand beside you? Will they rat you out? Or,
The
you know,
question.
don't need to rat you out. Will they call you and tell you, listen, man, they're coming to your house to kill you and take your daughters, run away? Or will they just,
Will they start? That is the real question every person has to ask himself concerning his Muslim friend. Will this person A, help me escape, defend me, or B, sit by and watch it happen to me, or C, take part in killing me? You cannot rule out that. You cannot rule out that.
yeah,
You just have to keep praying that you keep living in a society where these people don't rise to power. Because when that happens, then you are going to know if it is really not all Muslims.
yeah, yeah. No, I think that's a very, very good question that people need to ask themselves. And let's say even Americans right now, I saw a guy walking the street in Michigan interviewing, American converts to Islam. And he asked them, if America goes to war in Iraq right now or against the Taliban right now, will you join America or will you help Team Taliban? And they basically didn't tell them we're going to help Team Taliban because they'll get arrested for that. But they said, we'll go to jail before we help Team America. And
You want them to go and fight their brothers.
And yeah, the more they grow bigger and bigger, undoubtedly their alliance is not to that country, is not to that ideology. They actually see you as a foreign enemy ideology. And that explanation where you gave about ABC there, that's a very good one, man. It's a scary one, but it's a very good one. Now let me ask you a question. I mean, sorry, you were saying like live examples of these things happening. Do
Now,
you
let,
mind
let, let,
sharing?
let me give you a list of instances where there have been attacks on Christians in northern Nigeria, and it had nothing to do with Boko Haram. That is why you need to understand that the mentality of Boko Haram is a mentality that you find amongst many Muslims in northern Nigeria, but most of them in northern Nigeria. That is a mentality that they have. The ones that don't have this mentality are an exception to the general rule. And they just need an opportunity for them to just demonstrate that is the way they think. And many opportunity has presented itself in this country. Let's start from the early 2000s, right? When Nigeria was when northern countries when northern states in Nigeria were making the move to establish Sharia. They're making the move to establish Sharia law in their various states. Like they want a codified form of Sharia law for Sharia. They wanted the criminal code to reflect Sharia law. That was what the northern states wanted to do. They wanted the
What a
criminal code
nightmare.
to reflect Sharia law. And it does today in this country. We have two criminal codes in Nigeria. We have the penal code and the criminal code. That's kind of, because I studied law, I know this. The penal code applies in northern part of the country, and the penal code applies in the northern part of the country, and the criminal code applies in the south. The penal code is shaped by Sharia law. Under the penal code in the country, adultery is a crime. Drinking alcohol and all this stuff is a crime. So the question now becomes, to what degree do these states enforce it? But it is law in those states, right? So when that is being introduced in the northern part of the country, many of the Christians living in those parts of Nigeria were not okay with it. So they came out in protest of it. They didn't want it to happen. And how their Muslim brothers and sisters responded to them was by hacking them to death, killing them. This is known in Nigeria as the 2000 the 2000 riots. Of course, in Nigeria we call it riots. It was just riots. You know how riots happen. Every once in a while, a riot gets out of hand, and then one side starts slaughtering the other. That's how riots happen, right? That was in the 2000s. Then you had in 2001, Nigeria became the first country in Africa. Very glorious thing, something to celebrate, you would think, right? We became the first country in the world to win the Miss World Beauty pageant. We won that. Was people in the South, we are happy about it. And of course, if you know how these competitions are being run, is that it means the person who the country that wins gets to host the next year. So the next year, 2002, it was Nigeria. It was supposed to be Nigeria that will host the Miss World pageantry show, whatever it is called.
And that was a Christian girl, right? She was Christian.
Yeah, of course, it was a Christian girl, Bani Darego from the South. Wasn't a Muslim. Muslim girls do not even compete for these things.
They don't. It's hard to compete for a beauty competition when they can only see your socks, right?
Of course, of course. Well, so in 2002, the competition was going to hold in Nigeria, and the Muslims in Nigeria said it will not happen because it is haram and it is, it is bad, it is evil, blah 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 blah. The Quran, it is against the Quran, it is against Islam, and they were vocal about it. They were even issuing threats. On top of that was also the fact that many of the people who we are competing, many of the girls who we are competing for this, they were going to boycott it happening in Nigeria because of how women are being treated in Nigeria. Of course, and some of them said that we are going to use the pageantry as an opportunity to highlight that child marriage is a thing in Nigeria. Nigeria has the highest rate of child marriage in the whole of West Africa. Very important thing. Yes, thanks to northern Nigeria. In fact, one thing you need to know is that in northern Nigeria, there is no age restriction for marriage. In the south, there is, but in the north, there is not.
Really?
Yes. So they were going to use the pageantry show to, highlight many of these things and how the girl child and women in general are being treated in northern Nigeria. They wanted to, that was back then when people who have those, get those kind of opportunity, use it to do something meaningful. So the Muslims are not going to.
One second. For those who joined the channel right now, guys, what he's talking about, northern Nigeria is Muslim, southern Nigeria is Christian. And you can see a clear difference when it comes to human rights, human life, morality, and child marriage, child abuse, and acts of terrorism, modesty, like clear separation between the two.
It's as different as night and day. Like as different as night and day. Anyway, so back to what I was saying. And then, so why all this was going on, there was this journalist in Nigeria who decided to write about it. And the lady decided to criticize the Muslims and the way they were reacting to the Miss World pageantry being held in Nigeria. So she said that Muhammad would not have, this is one of those journalists who try to, appeal to moderate Muslims, not knowing that they don't exist in northern Nigeria. So in her bid to appeal to moderate Muslims, she told them that Muhammad would not have approved of their behavior, that in fact, Muhammad would have married one of those girls contested. And the Muslims did not take it well. They did not take it well. They did not take it well. They considered, in fact, they said that what she did was blasphemy. And for that reason, religious riot broke out in northern Nigeria, and Christians were being targeted and killed because of one lady that said something somewhere in Lagos. The lady herself had to flee the country.
So one journalist was trying to make the Muslims a little bit more moderate and just encourage them, and using their prophet as a good example, trying hopefully to push for coexistence. And the result was that they went and started chopping people with machetes that are not related to that woman, just because they're Christians.
Yes, because that's how the northern part of the country respond when they feel that their prophet or their religion is being insulted. they respond with just they go out and start hacking people to death as long as they can identify that this person is a Christian. That was another riot that happened in the country. It was so bad, and these people were calling for the woman herself who made the statement to be killed. The woman had to flee the country with all her family members. They had to flee the country. They could not stay in the country anymore because one of these Muslims might be brave enough to get to her location in the south and kill her.
Wow.
That was another instance. And for this, many Christians in northern Nigeria were killed, dragged out of their homes, dragged out of their cars, and killed.
How did Muslims in Nigeria respond when, let's say, there was this character drawing of Muhammad in Denmark or something like that? Like,
yeah, I was about to get to that. Before I get to that, I want to talk about the Rehad Bonki. I have so many. I think I have a couple of stories. Now, I want to talk about the Rehad Bonki crusade that held in Nigeria in the early 2000s, right? When the Rehad Bonki is this German evangelist. He usually goes to African countries and he holds these big crusades. Like, you have people coming there in their thousands, in their hundreds of thousands. And it was very effective because back then, people don't have television, so they cannot just watch an evangelist on TV. They didn't have any of that. Rehad Bonki was very effective. He would go to these rural areas and gather crowds of people.
Rehad Bonki?
Yeah, Reinhard Bonke. Reinhard Bonke. He's a German evangelist. You can Google famous German evangelist and you just see he passed away not too long ago, but maybe a few years ago.
Yeah, I have my assistant here, Renfield. I call him Renfield, but he's actually ChatGPT. I keep asking him questions. It's good to have an assistant, you feel like a proper podcaster, like Renfield. Give me that information. Pull me out that video, and then I type it myself, But anyway, I call my ChatGPT bot Ranfield. So Rehad Bonki, a German, well-known Bible teacher, missionary, I'm guessing, and
Yes.
he comes to Nigeria, and lots of people come to hear the word of
Yes,
God.
yes. He had been to Nigeria before. He came to Lagos. When he came to Lagos, it was a massive crusade. Like, people came in their numbers. You have so many people come. One of the things about Rehad Bonki crusades that kind of was a threat to northern Nigeria was that when people attend his crusade, they really give their life to Christ. Like, you have people in large numbers coming to Jesus Christ, right? So he was going to host one in Kano State. One was going to hold in Kano State. Now, Kano State is one of those states that, you have a vibrant Muslim population and Sharia law is up and swinging, right? And the Muslims were not happy with it. They were not happy with it. They were issuing threats. And when the day of the crusade came, they attacked the crusade ground. They destroyed equipment on the crusade ground and attacked Christians that they found on the crusade ground. And when I mean attacked, I'm not saying they slapped them and then said, don't do this again, and then left. No, they killed them, is what I mean by they attacked them. They hacked Christians that they found on the crusade ground.
So then they say it's not a religious war.
No, it's not. It's not. It's just. It's just family disagreement.
Family dispute over Thanksgiving. Fair enough.
Okay. Yeah, exactly. Somebody made a negative remark during Thanksgiving. That was just a minor. One of the uncles said something about Trump, and then
yes.
That was what
now they don't talk to each other. They blocked each other on Facebook. Exactly. That's like literally the disputes that you have in the West. You get angry and block them on Facebook. Over there, they come and chop you with machetes and shout "Allahu Akbar."
Yeah, and then you had the Danish cartoonist issue. When that happened in it's kind of that one is really funny because I don't even know how this had to do with Nigeria. In fact, when I didn't know about this until I was doing a research about the instances of Christians being attacked in northern Nigeria, and I came across the story, and I was blown away by it. I was like, really? But what has this to do with Nigeria? So what happened? You guys already know about the Danish cartoonist and the controversy that happened way back, where somebody from Denmark made a cartoon of the greatest and final prophet of Islam, the greatest feminist, the greatest peace advocate, the greatest what have you that ever existed, coming out from 7th century Arabia, right? So when that cartoon was drawn, some people considered it very disrespectful, and it led to, what it led to, right? Now, why that was happening in the West, and all of that was happening in the West, and you have all these Muslim countries condemning such acts, in Nigeria, what was the response of Muslims? To go out into the streets and attack and kill Christians. This happened in various states in this country as a result of something that happened in Denmark. Now, the victims here, many of them don't even know where Denmark is on the map. If you give them, like the people who died because of this in Nigeria, if you give them a map and say, point at Denmark, they would not know. They won't even know that Denmark shares a border with Sweden. They know nothing about Denmark. They don't even know what the Danish cartoonists look like. They have no idea that even something like that happened. But they were being hacked to death with blunt machetes by radical Islamists that have been told by pious Muslims that have been told by their imam that so and so happened. Now go into the streets and let people know how you feel.
My God. So you're a Nigerian girl who just decided she's going to school today, maybe just to walk by the market to see her parents before she go to school, and then you get jumped by people with machetes shouting Allah Akbar, who start chopping her to death because someone drew a character of Muhammad in Denmark. She never heard of Denmark. She doesn't know why they're killing her right now. They don't know where Denmark is. But that reminds me of what happened in Syria, man. You know how many of these jihadist Muslims, they came from all over the world to massacre the Druze and the Christians in the Syrian, Druze mountain, El Sueda. They've never heard of that place before. Most of them never even met a Druze before. And all of that because someone posted a fake audio message of a WhatsApp call of a Druze sheikh allegedly laughing about Islam. It wasn't even real. It was proven to be fake. So because of fake audio voice, we had suddenly Syria turning into Mad Max of jihadist style. Pickup trucks driving all over with the jihadists from 27 different, terrorist groups, all the way shouting Allah Akbar in the desert, like convoys of them coming to that mountain to kill all the men and take their women and their children as slaves. But
Islam.
what you're telling me is even worse, because this is like something that happened in Denmark, and then in Nigeria they go to the streets with machetes and start chopping children and killing women because
And
they're
when these people
Christians.
attack, like especially like the bandits are known to be Boko Haram and especially the Fulani militias that we call bandits now. Let's just call them their real name, Fulani jihadis. They are horrible. When these people attack, when these jihadis attack a village or a community, they kill pregnant women. They use their blunt machetes, open the woman's womb, bring out the child, and kill the child. They slaughter in the most inhumane, barbaric fashion you can ever imagine.
Wow.
These people are demon possessed. And here's the funny thing about Nigeria, my great country. Many of these jihadis, these Fulani jihadis, are on TikTok.
Don't they hate the West? Like, don't they believe that everything isn't that Boko Haram's whole idea that the West is bad?
Western education is bad until it is for when they want to spread propaganda. All of a sudden, you realize that English can come in handy.
Caveman, like literally a bunch of cavemans. They're all against technology only when technology serves them. They like technology for these reasons: promote jihad, kill Christians, and watch pornography. Like, this is the three things that they support technology. Bad, like literally the consume of pornography around the Muslim world, Arab world is just insane. Well, of course, when you hide all your women
When you hide all
behind,
the women, what do you expect?
you get horny just by smelling a woman or hearing a woman, then pornography becomes very appealing. And all of a sudden, forgive my language, but doing your schnitzkin, rubbing it with your hand in front of a smartphone that was made in America and in Israel and in China, very not Muslim places, suddenly that's okay. Suddenly you feel okay. You just need to shout Allah Akbar after you've done that. That is just sickening, man. Sickening.
These people, God will help them. God will help.
What a crazy. Listen, man, by the way, someone here mentioned a comment. I mentioned that fake audio. So my brother here from Lebanon said, yeah, the guy who made the fake audio is still active on YouTube today. Actually, I've seen him. That's true. And his name is Anas Habra. So a guy in Turkey published a fake audio of a sheikh mocking Islam, and then it led to the massacre of thousands and the dislocations of hundreds of thousands and the burning and looting and like literally an attempted genocide. It led to an attempted genocide by Islam on another minority in the Middle East. because someone in Turkey just posted. But what does that tell you? It's not really his fault.
Mhm.
I mean, it's not like they were saying, no, we don't want to go and kill them, please. And he had to convince them. He literally
They,
just made
they
a post.
they wanted to do it and they were looking for a reason. This is one thing you need to understand about these people. They always want to kill. They are just looking for a reason. They are just looking
Exactly.
for a reason.
Frank, I want to ask you a question.
Okay.
Are you worried as a Christian living in Nigeria right now? Do you feel safe? Do you feel that you need to worry for your life with the work that you're doing?
Yeah, when I was in Rebecca's channel, and the same thing I said something similar. The same thing I would say here. Like if I'm to go by what is happening, what is happening around, I will feel shaken. But one thing that I strongly believe is that my life, I'm a strong believer. I believe in the power of God to protect me. Now, some people will be like, oh, but the other people that get killed, they are Christians. Yeah, I know. But God is going to protect me. And I believe strongly in the power of God to protect myself. Since I started talking about Islam, people have been sending death threats. Yet I'm still alive, I guess. Uh, well, I'm sure I'm alive.
Yeah,
The way I said, I guess, as if I'm not sure.
yeah, I guess,
I'm sure.
I'm
I'm
pretty
sure I'm
sure. Well, you
alive.
don't look like an AI to me, so I
Yeah,
think
I
you're
don't look
okay.
at, yeah. It's not you're not hearing the voice of a ghost. So I'm alive, and I believe that God is going to continue to protect us. And when it has to do with the problem that is happening in this country, I do not look to. Of course, we are not looking to the government. I'm not even looking to the United States. Okay, I'm not looking to Trump. God knows how to protect those that are His. Is one thing that I believe strongly. Okay. And I know many people in the West will be like, oh, all these things don't, when you have, I want people in the West to understand something, and also in places that are relatively safe, like Western societies, where you have functioning governments, you tend to overlook the power of God. But when you don't have, the only thing you can look at, the only thing you can behold is the power of God to keep you. And for me, and for my household, and for all that concerns me, and for people around me, the number one person we look up to is God. Now, it doesn't mean that's the only thing we are doing, but that is the number one person we are looking at, and that is the person from whom every other thing we do proceed from. It is our hope and our confidence in Him that gives us confidence to do everything else. I believe strongly that these jihadists will not win. I believe strongly that God will prevail. He has done it in the past, and He will not stop prevailing now. I believe strongly that those that put their trust in God, He will deliver. He is able to deliver and to save those who trust in Him. And He has not said, like it's stated in the Bible, He has not said unto Jacob, seek me in vain. So He has not said unto anyone who He has called to Himself to just seek Him in vain. And even if I die in the process, it's not going to end what God is doing, because the power of God is still at work. Jihadists will not prevail. Jihadists will not succeed. Islam will fail. In fact, it has already failed. In fact, all these things that these Muslims are doing is what people do when they are failing. Okay, Christianity took over the Roman Empire without lifting up a single sword. That is what a prospering ideology looks like. When you have to pick up sword to defend whatever it is, or to spread whatever it is that you believe, it means you are believing in something that is false, that is already a failure in itself. But God will defend those that are His, and I believe that strongly. Okay, so and with that, I don't really allow myself to be afraid or even entertain any fear or uncertainty or doubt or whatever. I don't entertain it actually. It's my interest. I go about my day. I think less about what will happen to me. I put all of that in God's hand. I live my life completely in the hand of God. So,
Wow, man. Wow, brother. That's powerful. If there's one thing that I've learned from my many visits to Africa is that the Christians in Africa should teach the entire world what does it mean real faith, bravery, and courage and faith. There's so many Christians in Africa that are actually suffering persecution. Not just because someone laughed at them because they have a "What would Jesus do" bracelet on their hand in school and they had to hide it, and then they go back and say, "Oh, I got persecuted," and everybody feel bad for her. There's literally Christians in Africa that are having their churches burned down, their families slaughtered with machetes just for the sake that they're Christians. We have here right now in front of me a Christian in Africa living in a country where there is a lot of people that like to kill Christians there just because they're Christians, and they would look for them, and they will go, and they're literally they killed 7,000 Christians already this year only in that country, and he's standing here and preaching and talking as he talked so bravely. I think I admire you guys. I once went on the Charlie Kirk show, and I remember in the end he told me I have 45 seconds left to just summarize. I had like 13-minute segment to talk about the Druze, and I ran, ta 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 ta. I spoke for like this 45 seconds. I put everything, and then I asked in the end, and I said, "There's Christians all around the world that are being massacred. Why aren't American Christians doing anything about it?" And he looked at me and he said, "I agree with you, brother. We should definitely take care of Christians around the world." And shortly after, Charlie Kirk got assassinated, and now we're stuck with Candace Owens, Nick Fontes, and Tucker Carlson, who are trying to defend Islam. But bottom line, if anyone want to see what does it mean live by your faith and give everything to God, go and see how Christians are living under Islam. Go and see how Christians are living in Egypt, how Coptics are behaving when ISIS is about to behead them, and how Christians are living in Nigeria, in Sudan, and what do they do in these moments when they come and get persecuted, all in the name of their faith, and they choose to stand strong. So I admire you guys. If there's one thing that Africa can definitely give the world, it can give a lot of things, but that is the courage of people and their faith there. Like when I was there, so many times I was like, wow, if only we in the West knew how to rejoice in our faith, in simple stuff, in community, in prayer. Like when I was there, I met a lot of Catholics as well, and I said, guys, I don't understand why the next pope is not African. Like they're the strongest
Yeah,
Christians. They
you people
actually,
may not know this. Like the highest number of Catholics in the world are probably in Africa. The highest number, in fact, this is already a known fact that the highest number of Anglicans in the world are in Africa. There are more Anglicans in Nigeria than there are in the UK.
yeah, and they're proud about their Christianity. They're
Yes,
really close to the Bible. They don't hate
yes.
Israel. They don't follow false teachings. They're not compromising. They're actually practicing their faith, and they're living by their faith, and they're sacrificing by their faith. But for some reason, they keep picking the Pope and other leaders in countries that are, abandoned Islam already, or became Christianity and became apologetic about Christianity rather than remembering their community. Hey, I honestly think that the solution for Western civilization is Christianity, and I'm saying this as a Druze, because I think that Western civilization have lost its identity, and there's no identity right now that is giving a push to hostile ideologies like Islam and communism are coming to destroy it. There's no identity. If there is an identity, they're even doing more damage, like the LGBTQ community as an identity. Muslims throw gay people out of rooftops. What do? They do queers for Palestine.
Celebrate
You know,
them.
exactly. They come and welcome feminists. The feminist identity as part of the feminist movements. Muslims are kidnapping little girls and covering with hijab. What do? They go and defend Muhammad
Yeah.
and protect Islam. So there's not a single identity right now in the West that I can see, except from Christianity, that will save the world. Christianity has saved the Western world in the medieval days, and when the Ottoman Empire was about to go in the Battle of Vienna and Malta, when they were literally about to go and break over to Europe, and if they would have done that, imagine, we would have probably
Mm.
not reached the moon. Would have probably not even have the internet today. Like literally, if
Mhm.
they would have done that, we would have lived right now in a world where black people are called slaves, because that's how they call black people in Arabic, abid, and
Mhm.
where there is slavery, there is no human rights, no children's right, no protection for women, and there's great corruption, and is run by radical warlords, and the governments will be just shifting between, because that's what happened in Islam, by the way, guys. So the Arabs spread Islam outside of Saudi Arabia, and then they got greedy and they said, we don't want to fight anymore. So then they brought other slaves to fight for them, and they just wanted to rest in their harmons, and they created these places of corruption where they can go and do whatever they want, massive sex parties and drinking alcohol and just gold, and they got corrupt and fat and slow, and then these slaves who became Muslims turned over, killed them, and took over the government, and then again, and then again, and then again, the Mamluk, the Ottomans. This is exactly how it happened. They went and they conquered places in Asia, brought their children, made them fierce warriors, and then they came and took over them. So the world would have been a different world if it wasn't for Christians during the times of the Crusades. And I
Mm.
think it's happening again. The only ones that will save the world today from the spread of Islam is either the Christians or the Chinese. And I don't know if I want the Chinese to be the
I
ones.
don't know if I want the Chinese. That's not what I was about to say. I don't know if I want the.
No, that's what I think. I don't see another solution. I don't see anyone else stopping them, man. Like, oh, everyone else is helping them.
True.
That's how crazy
True.
it is. Well, anyway, brother, it was a pleasure talking to you. I mean, this went. I told him that we're gonna talk for 15 minutes, and now we're an hour 30, and I still have so many questions, so many things I want to talk to this guy. By the way, he let's helping out on Instagram, guys. He's not active enough on Instagram. He's a legend on YouTube, but in Instagram, I want this guy to crush it. So anyone who's following me right now on Instagram, go and subscribe to him. Help his channel keep growing. And also, he started a new channel.
YouTube channel.
Do you
Yeah.
mind telling a little bit about it? I mean, your channel and your new channel, your online, signature, and whatever you're doing. Please let us know.
Okay. I started a new YouTube channel. It's called the Bliss of Jihad. That's what I used as the the name tag on the live stream. Yeah, Bliss of Jihad. So I started a new YouTube channel. Essentially, what I do in Bliss of Jihad is to just explain incidents of jihad activities or anything jihad activity related. And I talk about it. I do it in a short, sarcastic way, which is kind of like my what is it called? My trademark is the sarcasm. The sarcasm is the trademark. So I used to do it. It's funny. It can be funny. It's quick, and it helps you get as much information as possible. And while doing so, you are also getting jokes, sarcastic jokes, and all whatnot. So that's kind of what I do in Bliss of Jihad. And I really want all of us, like as many of us that are watching, if you don't mind, just go to Bliss of Jihad and subscribe to the channel if you want to hear more about this kind of stuff. The first 3 videos I posted, the first 2 I was talking about just jihad activities that have happened recently. The other one I talked about the whole Cardi B, Donald Trump, brouhaha, and then the one I'm working on was talking about this. Many of the it's interesting thing, you might not know this, but many of the during the Gaza conflict, at the peak of it, for the past 2 years, you had on TikTok the people we call Gaza reverts, people who converted to Islam because of the war. And now that the war is over, they are leaving Islam. So I talked about that's what that is what the video that I'm working on is about. I'm done with the video, but it will go live on Monday. Talking about this and why they
Sorry,
chose
I
why they
can't, I
chose
can't, I can't believe what you just said. So imagine how dumb you need to be that the reason that the missionary reason that made you convert to Islam is Hamas. Like
yeah,
how
yeah,
dumb
they
can
saw
you
they
be?
saw Hamas and they were like, oh, Islam is great. So
How did you reach to this beautiful religion, Papa? There was a great, great group of believers called Hamas. And when I heard them preach their love and their faith, it made me convert into this beautiful religion of peace. I mean, literally, that's like ISIS made me join the Boko Haram.
maybe I saw them kidnapping Jewish girls and I was like, fantastic, sign me
What
up.
a bunch of lunatics! Yes,
And you know
yes,
what is interesting about most of these rivers? These Gaza rivers, like they are being called. They're all women.
that's insane. That is insane. That is like the epitome of human stupidity
I'm telling
in a
you.
nutshell. In
Yeah.
a
So I
nutshell.
made, I made a video about that. It's short. It's even a 4 minutes, 30 something seconds video. So there is that. And yeah, and many more to come. So if you want to see all of that, you go to Bliss of Jihad. Then on Nigerian Perspective with Frank Steven, I do mostly live streams where if you want to see me rant, if you want to see me rant, you want to see me just say it how it is in my mind. Every live stream I end up shouting at the top of my voice. If you
Definitely,
want to
man.
see all of that, then please go and subscribe to A Nigerian Perspective with Frank Steven, and you'll see this vein. I have one vein in my forehead. You'll see it pop out.
Oh my god, I want to see that now. I'm gonna go and watch one of them now just to see you rant. Well, guys, thank you so much for everyone who came here. Nora, you are a legend as always. Thank you for being a moderator on the show. And I've seen some trolls and weirdos. You kicked them out, handled them well. Highly appreciate everyone who stayed here, guys. Again, go and follow this brother here in different channels and platforms. Help him out. You can go and help support him as well. I think there's a link for Buy Me a Coffee in his profile where people who want to support his work can go and do that. Regardless, please do not forget the Christians in Nigeria. That is the purpose that we did this episode today, to give you a picture of what is happening in Nigeria and to hear it from someone that is actually from Nigeria and who has been reporting about these issues for a very long time. The situation is dire, and the West doesn't seem to care. And the only one right now from the West that is showing signs that they might care about it is Donald Trump, with the announcements that he made that if they don't stop it, America will step in. I really hope they will follow through with that, not because I want them to step in, but actually because I just want the killing to stop
Stop.
of what's happening in Nigeria. So please remember these people, pray for them, pray for the peace of Nigeria. And brother, thank you so much for coming on my show. It was a
100%
pleasure talking to
pleasure.
you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so, so much. I appreciate it.
No, and with that said, I just want to remind the viewers back home, as I always say, stay safe. Don't do anything stupid. Honestly, we became to a point in this life that the best advice that I can give humans is just to, don't do bad choices and don't do anything stupid. So let's keep to that. Bye bye.